Okay, so my name's first, before we begin, I acknowledge the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and also like to thank the Turrbal and Jagera people for having me virtually on their land. My name's Dr. Daniel Connell. I'm an artist and lecturer in painting and drawing at Adelaide Central School of Art. Let's see if this works. No, that doesn't work. Oh yeah, can you see the next slide now?
Yep.
Okay, so my work and my research is about meetings. How do we meet each other? I have worked as a portrait painter and a drawer and a socially engaged practitioner, and now work with Daria Collective in Adelaide and across Australia. It's a national group. So the background to this research is that my paintings and drawings derive from decades of making portraits, which was my first mode of inquiry, through which I have experienced the fraught nature of intersubjective representation. But I feel that the issues it raises about power and relationship and inclusion and class are too important not to take some responsibility in. I ask the question again, how do we meet? So research for my doctorate focused on documented intersubjective cross-cultural meetings via drawings that became sustained, ongoing relationships. Representation has a colonial legacy associated with claiming and extracting. The visual arts also has a legacy of exclusivity, capitalism, and consumerism. Realizing this has driven me to see art stripped bare of the object, the spectacle, and even the visual. I'm interested in the agency of art at a cellular level, asking what does art do inside of us? So a portrait can simply point to an identity and say it exists. That's what Zarina Muhammad would call level 1 identity art. Is there a level 2? Emmanuel Levinas wrote, "The face opens the primordial discourse, whose first word is obligation. It is that discourse that obliges the entering into discourse." When a relationship of obligation is entered into via or after an encounter, I believe this is when art emerges at its most powerful and broadly meaningful. After the encounter is when art is allowed to run its course. It doesn't end in a museum. Along the journey of relationships that ensue, partnerships form and authorship becomes irrelevant. And this mycelia-like network is the arts agency in the world. It's arts public pedagogy in the context of this conference. This paper will compare the work of two collectives, Inland and Oda Progesi, and with my own works with Daria Collective as examples of social practice art which share common elements. Social practice art, as Gretchen said this morning, is now in a place of critiquing and nuancing. The way social practice art interfaces with the public has a variety of aesthetics. You could say some of them are performative, participatory, dialogical, such as Ruang Rupa, the Wochenklauser Collective, etc. We could have performative activists like Array Collective in Belfast, etc. Antagonistic participatory, so doing something abhorrent or shocking. And then there is what I call sustained relational, and that's what I'm interested here in this paper. That is open-ended and non-spectacular ongoing artwork that is formed from intentional encounter and then continues. It often looks like things like workshops, meetings, home gatherings, clinics, etc. And it often doesn't have an exhibition outcome or is even documented. I'm interested in this last category because of its non-demonstrative, unperformed, non-performative, minimal, elusive, invisible qualities. I'm interested in these because such artworks utilize an altered mode of attention as their medium and outcome. They have the potential to involve the general public more widely and over time as the action of art is allowed to leach out and grow. Such works of art have major implications for inclusion across class, intersubjective representation, perceived and actual elitism in the visual arts, institutional centering, gatekeeping, and they offer a way to see and really wrestle with the capitalist and colonial DNA of visual arts. And this DNA also lingers in social practice work despite its best intentions. So this is not an argument against art institutions. It's an argument to look very honestly at how institutions can and do perpetuate colonial centrist structures and what we can offer as alternatives. So inland, you may or may not be, you probably are well aware of their work. They're quite well known now. It's a collective founded in 2009 in Spain by Fernando Garcia Godoy. In their own words, Inland examines the role of territories, geopolitics, culture, and identity in the relationship between the city, the countryside, and this countryside. Today, Inland works as a para-institution to open space for land-based collaborations, economies, and communities of practice. Inland's activities include study groups, publications, training schools for shepherds, peasant leaders, and crafters, newly commissioned projects by artists and farmers, involvement in local politics and solidarity networks. It's an imaginative, inquisitive, and practical method for relating to our environment, relying on peasant and Indigenous resistance, while also appropriating institutional means. And that last part is important. It's an image from Inland's webpage. So you can see it's very much about community organisation. In Documenta 15, Inland displayed a cabinet of curios, an art museum, a cheese pavilion, and a workshop with the requisite community participation and the ubiquitous timber structures of pop-up festival aesthetic. But I argue the work of Inland is not what we see here. That's some of that work. It's not designed around a specific outcome, but like a school or a union, it responds to and builds a community in specific and fixed sites. Of course, there are many thousands of groups running workshops in beekeeping or organic farming or tool repairing in the world today. Most are not framed as art, but as valid, healthy community activities. But what happens when Inland frames their work as art is that the focus is shifted. The workshop is de-instrumentalized and the community connection is foregrounded. Attention and scrutiny is given to interconnected relationships, perhaps more so than in a community composting workshop where the focus is rightly on composting. That's not to say it's better, it's simply an altered mode of attention. And this offers great insights and contributions to understanding human connectivity. And that's what art does, shine a light on often unseen things worthy of attention. When we see the work of community transplanted into public gaze at Biennale or a gallery, it seems out of place, but it serves two main purposes. It garners funding and recognition and builds a profile, all of which artists need to exist, and it gets this in exchange for providing organizations such as Art Dubai the desired credibility of progressive thinking, which comes from contemporary art and is necessary to attract the high-end capital of the fashion and luxury brand industry, which Dubai, Miami, Basel, Berlin, and other states have built an economy on. Working this appropriation consciously is problematic, of course, and difficult, but perhaps, and I leave a question there, an important part of the messic rhizomic action of art. So Oda Projesi, moving on quickly, it means room project in Turkish. It was established in 2000 in Istanbul by Özer Agikol, Güneş Sabas, and Seçil Yersul. It was founded as a non-profit independent project to activate and actualize community spaces in exchange and dialogue, hosting projects, gatherings, and acts. Since 2005, owing to the gentrification process in Istanbul, the collective has carried its studio-based practice into media and has used the newspaper annex since 2003 as its main form of art making. They describe their work as related to Istanbul and related to the place of Istanbul, the spatial relationships that form the city. The format continues through means of communication, and their latest work for the Istanbul Biennale in 2023 focuses on dialogue and motherhood. So the mantra exchange, not change, emphasizes collaboration over direct activism. So even though this is the space of activism, I feel as though this is an alternative view of activism, because what they're doing by emphasizing collaboration over direct activism is quite subversive. They are championing the ordinary over the spectacular, allowing room, critiquing society's fetish of the exotic, the novelty, the young, and the always new. And that's also the fetish of the art world too. Both Inland and Oda create works which seem shoehorned and touristic in a biennale, but this is their strength. Rather than considering an audience, they consider who they are. Even though they are regularly consumed via biennales, they withhold from the consumer the desire for drama, narrative, meaning, information, and utility. These works are renegotiating the autonomy of art by revealing the support networks that create them, hence the concept of collective. Shannon Jackson has written often about supports for artworks as visual artists in the social sphere awaken to the realization that contemporary performing arts, which usually operate as a collective, has been there before. I'll now discuss the work of Daria Collective and other informal collective projects in South Australia, which I've been a part of and which have precipitated this research. Oh, sorry, there's some more images there. So the first one here is the Matilda Street ongoing immersive artwork, which is where I am broadcasting from right now. So it's a set of 2 apartments where new migrants are invited to live in a leafy inner suburb of Adelaide. The rooms are offered on a shared basis with no bond and only a stated contract of kindness. So 26 people over 6 years have now been through it, and it's soon to be a subject of a ABC Radio National documentary. SUPNUM, which is South Australian Professional Networking Association for Migrants, has become Australia's largest free and voluntary employment service for migrants. It works on a one-to-one basis with people to enable them to discuss the blocks that they're feeling in accessing employment, everything from why can't people pronounce my name to why am I getting the same rejection of not enough local experience. So we work on a one-to-one basis with that and literally write and rewrite and workshop people's individual CVs and cover letters. We've got, there's about 2,000 people involved in that and about 40 different industries who we've collected as mentors. The Parent Long Stay Visa campaign was a limited campaign, but it did successfully change the policy of both the Labor and the Liberal Party towards the visa plan for migrants, parents. Unfortunately, that got derailed by the election that Scott Morrison won. And then we are hoping that it is going to be implemented soon. But that was a very interesting and very incredibly intense campaign to be involved in. So the next one I talk about is advocacy and conflict. So with Pardeep Gill, who's the person in the middle of that photo there in the green and blue checked shirt, Pardeep and I worked in collaboration to reach out to people who are experiencing wage theft or exploitation in the workforce and to link them up with sympathetic and lawyers of goodwill, but also submit parliamentary inquiries and do campaigns about raising awareness about workers' rights. This is an ongoing project as well. So we've done different exhibitions and all sorts of different ways of getting the message out there. And the last one is acknowledging the subject. Have I gone over time?
Very quickly.
No?
We're running about 20 minutes late. Okay.
20 minutes late, no worries. So acknowledging the subjects. So this is studies in mycelial action and revealing the support networks. These were simply wall texts which directed people to actions that had happened prior. So to end, I'll just summarize, I guess. Where am I? So works like Inland and Oda exist in an unfolding format, built in partnership without production or event or even documentation. The collective works previously authored by me, but now dissolved into Daria, and they are utterly dependent on the microenergy of intentional, unexpected and genuine ongoing relationships mediated originally by a drawing. They exist in discussion and in future conversations. It doesn't matter if people understand it as art. What matters is that in these artworks, participants are not passive, but very active. Are they sufficiently antagonistic to interrupt an audience's expectations? They are not made for an exterior audience. They are ongoing, immersive and endurance quality of sustained human encounters and that is antagonism enough. We don't need an imposed jeopardy point. Allowing a subject group to speak back and say this is what we need your time and your resources to be spent on as an artist is a powerful thing. I was going to end with an allusion to Gudia Gudia, but I will, if anybody's seen that work by Marageku and Vernonaki, it's extremely powerful work, but I guess it rounds it off beautifully in the sense that there's a part in that work that says the time is over, but it also harkens back to the idea that the time is now. So the idea of contemporary art moving into the post-contemporary, which is artworks that don't have an ending and don't have an exhibition outcome, they have an open, ongoing trajectory, is what I'm actually interested in. So with that rushed ending, I will finish.
Thank you so much.